Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me again on another 2026 updates video. Today we're talking about my favorite Mercedes Class B van on the market, the most popular and best-selling for off-grid and off-road use, the Revel adventure van from Winnebago here. Today we're going to talk about changes with 2026 and just a general overview of the van, things that I really like about it, and key differences between the two, and what might work slightly better for you. Let's get started. So both the Revel and the Revel Sport are going to come with the new Mercedes 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine, giving us more horsepower and torque than the previous generations, as well as this is going to have the 280 amp secondary alternator under the hood, whether it's the Revel or the Revel Sport, so you can charge at idle and have those RV house batteries charged up for your adventures. I also want to mention with 2026 we're getting these front-facing cameras that are doing a better job of reading the roadway signs, doing better for the adaptive cruise control and the blind spot, the pass assist management. I also want to mention we've got the cameras on our mirror here for the 360 cam around the RV. So backing into a national park or an off-road site that you're setting up, this will give you good view of objects in your surrounding, large rocks, maybe even picnic tables at a campground. Just very helpful to have this on board as well. And when we walk to the rear, I want to mention as always that we do have a 5,000 pound drawbar with a 500 pound max vertical weight rating or tongue weight. And we do have a 7-way outlet here. The only thing you'd have to add if you're going to be towing a heavy trailer is of course an electronic brake controller. That's not going to be available from factory, but service centers like Colonial RV can absolutely take care of that for you. And there's a few things on the outside that are actually different between the two models. So on the Revel, the 44E or the 44EC, the new 2026 available floor plan like we have here, you have this stylized aluminum ladder that's mounted off the rear door. Looks fantastic. I love that they have little cutouts of the Revel itself in the Molly panel here. And if you look up to our luggage rack that on both the Revel and the Revel Sport, the awning is actually mounted off of. It's going to be a Carefree awning with a Bluetooth app to pair to. You can see the awning lit up on my Sport over here. This roof rack or luggage rack, as it's called from Winnebago, with the Sport model is just going to be bare exposed and of course have the awning off of it. But on the 44E we get the stylized trim and we've got high intensity lights in the front with switches in the cab. So when you're off-roading with your Revel, you've got these very powerful lights. And the other thing I want to mention, both of the Revel and the Revel Sport are going to have running boards, but with the 44E, we get it stylized with the logo. It's extended a little bit further, and it still is ambient lit underneath, which just looks so great at the RV park or off-road on the trails. Another thing that's actually an option, but it's an option for both the Revel and the Revel Sport, is the Revel stylized wheels with the BF Goodrich all-terrain KO2 tires here, or KO3s actually with 2026. Very beautiful look, just especially with the all-wheel drive chassis that both of these are built on. Fits the profile and the design element perfectly, and it's just going to be very capable off-road. And when you look into the hood here, or into the cab, I wanted to mention whether it's the Sport or the 44E, we've got mechanical seats that are going to slide, rotate, and recline, and they're still heated despite now being manual adjustments. There's still lumbar support, and all the fantastic chassis features, whether you go with the Sport or the Revel here, we're getting the same adaptive cruise control, the same blind spot monitoring, pass assist, brake assist, attention assist, lane keep assist. There's so much features, but most notably with 2026, the adaptive cruise control has just been slightly improved upon with all these new features. And right here on the steering wheel, you can kind of see some of the controls on my left. And I always love mentioning the MBUX screen here with all of your data, all of your information that's kind of reporting with service intervals, diesel particle filters, oil intervals. All of that is also available in the Mercedes Me Connect app. So it's one of the things with 26 I'm starting to kind of go over with my clients, getting them more familiar with it, just because it's a very helpful tool as an owner of an RV or a vehicle to have and be able to use. So now looking at the exterior of the Revel Sport, you can see the difference in the luggage rack where we don't have the stylized trim added along. And also with the running boards on the Sport, we just have the Winnebago logo. We still have tie downs for like leashes or things we might want to lock up against our rail here, as well as the LED ambient lighting on both sides. And whether you go with your Sport or a Revel as your RV, you're going to get the 5.5 gallon cassette toilet. So this tank's removable. It's very easy to take this to a dump station or even like a truck stop, rest stop in order to dump this. There's actually been a ton of clients I met that have seen this out in the wild in the past and had no idea what it is. So I always love talking about this and how it's a slightly easier tank system than a black tank to keep clean as well as to replace in the event that it needed to be replaced. So also I want you to look above our pop out here, we've got a dump light. We have one over the entry door, this same style. This is just gonna light up our dump area here, as well as where our smart cord is located. So the only difference in this smart plug between the Revel and the Revel Sport is with the Revel, you're going to get the little ground load neutral indicator to the left of the smart cord. Either way, these smart cords are fantastic, a very great new entry to the market, so we're glad to have them on all our Winnebagos now. And I wanted to mention, this is the ladder that you will see with the Revel Sport. So this is actually removable off the rear door, and it's designed to clip onto the luggage rack to lay up against the trim panels, so you can actually choose where to access the luggage rack on the roof from your rear ladder. So it's a nice feature to be able to move it around, but of course, you can see the draw to the look of the aluminum stylized one on the Revel. So let's go ahead and we'll start talking about features on the inside. For the outside, the other thing I want to mention is by the doorway here. Of course, quickly, I want to mention the dual acrylic pane windows here. This is a much better insulator than the sliding glass. It's also a great look, and it gives us the ability to use the blackout window shades / screen in the little cassettes around the windows inside I'll show you. And this is also a manual door. We don't have to worry about this door breaking, which is a fantastic feature. And then right here, we've got freshwater drains. So hot, cold, as well as the fresh tank itself. I'm gonna go into the differences on the plumbing, but they are very, very similar. And with both, you're going to get a rear roll-F screen. We have a side entry roll-F screen here. So this will come down, but it still has a magnetic catch, so we can walk in and out. And the big benefit of having this over a wipe screen is your dog can run through this and not destroy the wipe screen. Also in the rear, I wanna mention there is a blackout. So even if you wanted to have, air pass through during the day, but you wanted to drop that curtain to just kind of block out any sun or any people from looking in on the van, you still have that with the rear. And stepping in, I believe we'll start with the Sport here. So first thing I want to reiterate is, of course, these seats here do still rotate to face the center aisle. With the 44N Sport that I'm in right now, we have this rear bench facing forward. And the big benefit of this bench facing forward is for any passengers you might have. You do typically want to have at least one 3-point belt. So if you're using a car seat or any type of, like even small dog beds that get affixed with a seat like this, it's just good to have along. And there's also a lap belt on the outside. So two small children or just smaller adults could fit here. So moving along with a couple more people as passengers, it's going to be more comfortable with them facing forward. I want to also mention that there's another floor plan available, the Revel 44C, or the Revel Sport 44C, excuse me. So on the Sport 44C, this bench is going to face forward. The only thing we're going to lose out on is we won't have this storage compartment under the step. And this table is a pedestal table with removable top table. So I normally stow this like in the above head shelf when I'm driving. But with the 44C, you're going to get a lagoon table instead of this. And the lagoon table is going to be mounted over here. So with this seat facing the rear, it's nice because you can be dining across from each other or playing a card game. But with the 44N, you're kind of using all three, and the lagoon table's trying to reach more into the center aisle. Also, on the Revel Sport and the Revel, we're both going to have the 3 cubic foot DC, so 12 volt fridge here. And this is going to run quietly off the compressor. As a technician, I very, very seldom ever had issues with my Novacools here. as well as the same Carefree awning on both models with the Bluetooth app. Just want to mention that as well. And we're going to have a lot of 110 as well as 12 volt outlets. There's 12 volt outlets below there throughout the coach, as well as ram mounts. So both on the entry grip handle, as well as underneath a lot of these cabinets and in the rear bedroom, we're going to have ram mounts, which are fantastic if you're trying to bring along like a tablet or a phone mount. So instead of like a laptop or a TV being set up, it's very easy to get just an adjustable mount and bring a tablet you might already have and kind of use that for entertainment when you're in the van. So one thing that's kind of different, but really just about the same on both, is going to be this EcoFlow monitoring display panel here. So both the Revel and the Revel Sport are going to have a 3,600 watt inverter, but they're going to vary in the battery bank sizes. That's going to be the key difference between the two models. So right here I can see with the Sport, we have roughly 1 day, 15 hours remaining. With the Revel, we're going to have substantially more battery power, so we're going to expect longer times off grid. And there's also a companion app to pair to this, so I can kind of monitor the battery output as well as input. And I wanted to mention, we have 210 watts of solar on the roof. We have, of course, the secondary alternator as a 280 amp charging solution. And then, of course, we have shore cord. So there's still a converter on board, so when we plug in at the campsite or even at home with some adapters in line, we can plug this coach up and power it as well as the AC and give it a pretty decent charge current, whether we're doing 12 amp, 15 amp, 20 amp, or a 30 amp outlet, of course. Just general controls and the televator for the bed here, but I wanted to mention we have the L-Well drip diesel furnace. So whether we're doing continuous flow hot water or we're heating up the coach, this is an extremely efficient system. Gives us the ability to not have propane on board when we're using diesel and electric as our fuel solutions here. And of course, our rear AC, it's worth mentioning, does have a heat pump, does have a Bluetooth app to pair to as well. So as long as you're close to the coach, you can shut your AC on and off and change your temperature settings. But the heat pump is only really good to about, say, 40 degrees ambient temp outside. So once it gets that cool and that cold out, you really want to use your furnace and let the heat pump on the AC take a break, because we wouldn't want that freezing and just dropping off in performance in those colder temps. And the televator bed is very easy to use. We're just using the key provided with the Revel, and then up is bringing my belts up, driving the whole bed up to the ceiling. And I want to do that quickly so I can show you some things in the rear here. But before we get back there, I want to talk about our little kitchenette as well as our bathroom enclosure. So between the Revel and the Revel Sport, both are going to have a latch up top. They're going to be different latches between the two models and different style folding doors between the two models. The latch is honestly fantastic because when you're going on a test drive, this is actually pulling the door tight, so we're not hearing any vibration when we're going down the road. Once I have this open, there's also a very strong magnet on the bottom. I have so many people that are afraid they're going to damage the door by pulling it as hard as they do, but that magnet is also to keep it nice and quiet when you're traveling down the road. Now, the height of the compartment is just under 6 feet here. So me at 6 feet, I can just barely stand with my head tapping the ceiling. And of course, you're going to get a shower curtain that buttons up on the inside here, so you can kind of expand the space when you're in here, have a little more elbow room. As well as the shower head itself is removable, and we have a teak insert that works as a shelf when you're not using this as your bathroom, which I've also seen people hang up their wetsuits, skis, snowsuits, things that they want to kind of drip dry. They work great in this compartment, but it's also nice to use this as storage when you're not using this bathroom and you're using facilities at a place you're staying. I want to also mention we do have the evacuator fan, so pulling any steam, heat out of this vent, we do have a vent fan right in the bath compartment, as well as the commode head. Because this is a cassette toilet with flush off the fresh tank there, we can rotate out of the way to give us more room. We do have compartments and toilet paper storage that'll keep it dry out of the way when we're using this as a bathroom compartment. Now, moving over to the kitchenette, there's really not too much to talk about between the two models. Both will have a little drain pump on the sink to travel water from this side of the coach to the other, to the gray tank. And with the 44 or the Revel 44N and 44C, we have a little countertop extension that we typically keep hidden underneath the bench here. We've got just essentially like magazine storage, really just a flat storage compartment right there. This countertop extension helps give us a little more room if we're using our induction cook plate, for example, or just additional prep space right here in our kitchen. It's very nice to have, as well as these locking compartment latches. We've got a small drawer, pretty deep small drawer, as well as a very deep bottom drawer. It's just nice to have, even in a van of this size, so many storage compartments. And something I like, in addition to the overhead cabinet with metal framing, another thing that contributes to this being just a quieter, more comfortable ride when you're going down the road is this thin closet we have in the back. So everyone I normally talk to is asking about hanging storage or adjustable shelves. So I'm glad that we have that, as well as access for service technicians or any Winnebago service center to kind of access your LL heat exchanger, just to work on any of those parts as well. And we do have a square basin sink with a very nice shower head. The roll-off screen can actually come out of this from this zipper on, so if you wanted to have breezy open air where the screen is, you can have this whole area opened, but it's going to be a little bit different on the 44E. So walking all the way back into our gear garage here, I wanted to mention with this bed all the way up, we have net storage as well as a storage bag right here, LED lighting. We have lighting, of course, on the ceiling around the AC. And with the bed made, it's roughly a 49 by 79 inch bed. So good enough to fit a 6-foot tall adult like myself, typically 2 adults. And I wanted to mention with the Sport, we're getting these D-ring tie downs. So golf bags, water skis, snowboards, things like that. You still have 6 different locations to tie down across that. And something special I wanted to mention in the gear garage to the left, with the Sport, you're getting a 24-gallon fresh tank that's actually stored behind this fascia here. Essentially, this is really a molded compartment where you have your water management system and the fresh tank and some of your plumbing housed right here. On the opposite side, this is where we actually have our EcoFlow battery bank as well as our hub kit. So our 3,600 watt inverter and the 5,000 kilowatt hour battery is located back here. So it's going to be slightly different on the Revel, but with 2026, we're seeing the 3,600 watt inverter become standard between the Revel and the Revel Sport. But this EcoFlow, the 5,000 kilowatt or the 5,000 watt hour system, is only going to be available on the Sport. So real quick, let's take a trip over to the Revel and we'll talk more about the battery management system. So now we are in the back of the Revel 44EC, the new 2026 model. So in the back of the Revel, instead of the D-rings like the Revel Sport, we have aluminum L-tracks. And these are strategically placed for all the gear that we'd still be stowing back here. But the rear construction has changed. And also, it's worth mentioning, the Revel Sport's only available in the Intrepid interior. With the Revel, we have the Overland interior, excuse me, like you're going to see here today. And there's also the Revel Solstice interior available, which is now like a black yellow trim. Very cool looking, but this Overland kind of brings the outdoors in with the styling here. So with the rear storage for the batteries, standard would be a 8.4 kilowatt hour battery bank, but you can optionally add a second Lithionics battery, and one Lithionics battery would be 320 amp hours, 2 will be 640 or 16.8 kilowatt hours. So we're expecting almost 7 days of off-grid time, depending on your usage, and idling the motor or 210 amps of solar. That's going to bring in a significant charge for expanding your use time across those 7 days. The other thing that's changed is the compartment on this side where the water management systems are. We actually have a 35-gallon freshwater tank instead of the 24-gallon. So that extra 11 gallons is supposed to expand your off-grid use a little bit further. So despite the vans being the same chassis, the same size, we have very different battery and water management somewhat here. At least capacity is very, very different. And then a few different things in the bedroom here. I want to mention we have the Overland window cassette for our blind and our screen here. And of course, the dual pane windows that I love, the Euro style. And then when we're walking out of the bedroom, there's actually a divider curtain. So with the bed down, this little door is going to be in the way. So if you have somebody on the front Luno cab bed, which is an option, an inflatable cab bed for the front there, you can have the space kind of divided with this divider. And then as I walk into the bath compartment and the kitchenette here, I wanted to mention that the door for the bathroom is going to be a little bit different. So instead of a bifold, they're actually going to separate at the center. And we have this hardware now for all of our cabinets in this door here. So this is actually pulling it nice and tight, so we're not going to get any sound out of it going down the road. But to unlatch it, I'm actually going to expose that orange, and now I can pull the doors apart. So we have a mirror on the door on this side, and we actually have on this side a little partition that will fold out. So if we're blocking the space completely from the aisle in the front, I can do that. And we still have about the same size bathroom compartment here. Still have the LED lighting, just our snaps are located slightly different, same curtain. And that actually reminds me, one of the options with the Revel is to cover the rubber coin flooring, which is honestly a huge favorite of mine. This is easier to clean, easier to kind of just wipe, spray out. You're gonna get optional floor mats for both the front and the runner of the RV with the Revel, but the Sport, it's not an available option, but the Sport, you'll get a thermal curtain that goes across this rail here and blinds out the cab from the center of the RV. That's also available with the Revel Sport, but with the Revel, you're going to get additionally the covers that go in the windows and across the windshield. So if you're blinding out just the windows and rotating the seats, the Revel gives you those coverings to kind of still use that space. But whether you go with a Revel or a Revel Sport, you'll have the thermal curtain to both insulate and divide the coach from the cab there. So sorry for getting distracted there for a moment. Now moving into the kitchenette, the first thing I want to point out is we don't have that closet that I love in the Revel Sport in the Revel. In the Revel, we're going to get this nice hanger here, a more rectangular sink, and a updated shower faucet with the sprayer being able to be removable, giving you kind of more of a range, or even being able to use it off the entry door there. We also get a larger overhead cabinet where we can see some of our Winnebago goodies in here, like the rear shower head, the drain hose, and just some hardware for the rear bed and aluminum L-track. And underneath here, of course, we have our 110 and our 12 volt plugs, USB-C and USB 2, and of course, drain pump right there. And then we have two decent sized drawers and one very large drawer. And it's worth mentioning, these are soft close drawers. I never get tired of seeing that. And we still do have a small compartment in the back here and an access panel to our L-well or our timberline down there. So that way techs can still have a good time in that corner there. So moving up to the end of the kitchenette here, I wanted to mention that instead of having our controls like on the Sport, we've got the same awning control, awning light, and our running board light, as well as our entry door light switch right here. And they've repositioned it so we can have another long drawer right here, and this cutting board top actually extends the countertop space, and underneath we have our induction cook plate. So of course, because we have so much battery power on board and no propane, we're going to be using the induction cook plate, and just with the amount of space here for prep and for cooking, the Revel is a great option between the two. And then of course, I want to get to our large difference, which is actually right behind me. So depending on floor plan, if you go with a 44 EC, you're going to get the couch facing the entry door. And if you go with the Revel Sport 44C, you're going to get this couch facing the doorway. But it's going to be the Intrepid, the blue with the Sport. And with the Revel, you can either have this overland interior or the Solstice that has recently come out. And I wanted to mention, I don't have, of course, the 3-point belt like we do on the 44N and the Revel 44E, but we do have 2 lap belts here. So we can still have 2 passengers. They don't necessarily have to be too close to each other. It depends how tall your driver is, but still having the ability to bring passengers is fantastic. And of course, rotating the seats and the Lagoon table here. So something I love to mention is you can always get aftermarket additional Lagoon mounts. So we can have one of these Lagoon mounts actually right here by the entryway where we have a D-ring right there. This is great if you're tying, dog leashes, things like that right by the entry door so they can come in and out of the RV, but also removing that, having a lagoon table so you can have a table right here for the passenger, as well as potentially adding a mount here so you can have it between the driver. But if you're one or two people traveling, you have someone laying in bed, you have somebody working here at the table, or someone prepping in the kitchen and using this as additional space, it's fantastic that the lagoon table is present in the 44EC and the 44C. One last thing I wanted to mention between the Revel and the Sport is in the Revel with the overland interior or the Solstice interior, we're actually going to not just cover things like the cassette for the window screens and the blackout shades, we're also going to be trimming out the cab here so you can see the MBUX system, the cup holders, the entry door. That same overland trim is present throughout the coach to really tie this RV together. So I wanted to mention the rooftop AC is actually optional between the Revel and the Revel Sport. If you wanted, you could have a second vent like we have up front that has the rain cover already installed from factory. That way, if you're doing more winter camping than summer camping, and you don't necessarily need the AC, you can have a slightly lower roof height. We're at roughly 10 feet right now with the AC, and without, we'd be roughly 5 or 6 inches shorter. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me for the 2026 Revel and Revel Sport update video. If there's anything you really like or really don't like about the RV, please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see me here in Millstone Township, New Jersey, give me a call, send me an email. I'm really looking forward to showing you the Revel in person.